Well, welcome everyone to Voice Project's webinar on Cultivating Change Capability. If you don't know me, I'm Peter Langford. I'm the Director of Voice Project. I hope you're all staying well during these challenging and unique times. For those of you who are used to attending our in-person breakfasts, I apologise that we can't offer you hot food and caffeine this time around, but no doubt there's a high proportion of you who are wearing Uggies this time, and that's perhaps not a bad thing. Today's slides are available on the link that is shown on the screen, and the slides are there now if you want to download them. We're also recording the webinar, and we'll send a link around sometime after the webinar so that you can access a recording of the webinar either for yourself or for your colleagues. In a moment, I'll introduce my colleague, Dr. Louise Parks, who will in turn introduce our speakers, Fiona Murphy and Genevieve Doyle from Sturt University. We're hearing today from Sturt University because they are the enterprise level winner of our 2020 Change Challenge Awards. But first, I'll just take a moment to give you an update of what's been happening at Voice Project and also announce the other finalists and winners of our awards. If you don't know Voice Project, our core purpose is improving organisations by giving people a voice. Our services include employee surveys, 360 surveys, custom surveys, focus groups and action planning. Our key points of difference are long-term client relationships, and indeed our relationship with Sturt University is an example of that, having started working with them in 2003. We offer flexible solutions for different needs and budgets, and we're grounded in ongoing research. Indeed, we grew out of a research project at Macquarie University, and since 2002 we've delivered surveys to more than 3.5 million employees and customers. Here's a quick update of what's been happening at Voice Project. Yes, we're working from home like many others and enjoying the joys of our Uggies and lots of video conferencing. When the lockdowns hit, we launched our COVID-19 staff check-in survey, and that has been hugely popular. We've had 70 organisations that are either currently live or who have completed a first round of that survey. It taps into staff levels of well-being during this time and also how well you're doing in terms of business continuity. It is available free if you take the standard version, and you can use it as many times as you like, or for a fee if you'd like to change the content. We've also had our voice engagement survey well received over the last year. So about 2 years ago, we put the microscope over our standard engagement survey and looked for ways that we could make it more efficient. And through a fairly big research project, we cut the length by about 1/3 and added new content to the survey as well. And for those clients who've used it over the last year, it has been extremely well received. We've also just launched our new online reporting tool that's part of our survey portal. And for the early users of that tool, we've had great feedback. It's attractive, user-friendly, allows fully interactive exploration of results, and also manager-level permissions for results access and action planning. And finally, I just want to mention our 2 sets of awards. We have our Change Challenge Awards, which recognise our clients who have improved the most, and we also have our Best Workplace Awards that recognise our highest performing clients. Today we're going to be talking about the Change Challenge Awards, but if you're interested in more details about the Best Workplace Awards, give us a yell. All right, the Change Challenge Awards. We started these back in 2014, and they were designed to recognise and learn from outstanding change journeys. This year, our finalists were shortlisted from 117 eligible organisations. All of the finalists were invited to submit more details about their change journeys, and those submissions were judged by 3 people, including Jonathan Stone, who's a partner at BDO, Barbara Griffin, who's a professor at Macquarie University, and myself. So thank you to Jonathan and Barbara for your time reviewing all those submissions. The finalists from those 117 organisations, we split them into 3 categories. In the small to medium category, the finalists were Asthma Australia, Endota Spa, Graduate Student Association, National Breast Cancer Foundation. In the large category, they were City of Vincent, Elastomers Australia, St Aloysius College, Telethon Kids Institute, and Uniting Care Wesley Bowden. And in the enterprise category, they were Charles Sturt University, Downer, Macquarie University, University of Western Australia, and Women's and Children's Health Network. I'd highlight there that we've got 3 universities in the enterprise category, and that emphasises how the higher education sector was actually achieving some really good outcomes in terms of improving their workplaces prior to COVID-19 hitting. But of course, the sector has been hit quite hard with the reduction in international students. And our presenters today from Charles Sturt Uni will allude to some of that in their presentation. I had the privilege of reading through the submissions from our finalists, and there are some inspiring change journeys there. So big congratulations to all of you for what you've achieved in your organisations. We normally only have 1 winner per category, but in our enterprise category, we had an extremely close runner-up. So we felt the need to offer a highly commended award to Downer. So to the Downer folks out there, I apologise that we couldn't get you over the line for a winner's trophy, but I hope the highly commended award recognises the impressive change results that you've been achieving recently. But the winners are, if anyone out there can do a drum roll, that would be good. They are in the small category. It was National Breast Cancer Foundation. In the large category, Elastomers Australia. And of course, in the enterprise category, it was Charles Sturt University. And we'll hear from Charles Sturt Uni right now, but we will also endeavour to get case studies put together for National Breast Cancer Foundation and Elastomers so that we can communicate what they've been achieving and how they achieved it. And we'll get that out through our normal newsletter. All right, so I'm about to hand over for our main presentation. Throughout the webinar, we will have a couple of question and answer sessions, so one in the middle of the presentation and one at the end. We'd like this to be as interactive as possible. So if you find the Q&A button, that should be somewhere on your screen. You may need to mouse over a little bit for it to appear. Please submit your questions at any point in the webinar, and we will be looking through those, or you can like existing questions that have already been posed, and the more that you like them, they will appear higher on the list and make it a bit more likely that we're going to choose those questions to pose to our presenters. Now, before I dive into the presentation, a quick poll that we'd like to run, and the question that I'll pose to you is, what organisational capabilities have helped your organisation navigate through the impacts of COVID-19? So we'd like your responses to this poll. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button there. And I will launch the poll. And I believe that is now open for everyone to submit your responses. Now I'll give you 1 minute to choose as many of these workplace practices as you like. In terms of the question, what capabilities have helped your organisation navigate through the impacts of COVID-19? Now, I'm not sure if all the people in the audience there can see the results coming in. I can, but I'll end the polling in about 30 seconds and I'll share all the results with everyone. For the people who are watching a recorded version of this webinar, I don't believe that you can see what's on the screen at the moment with the polling, so I'll announce what the results are in a moment. All right, 10 more seconds and I'll wrap this up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I will end the poll and share the results with everyone. So what we have in terms of the capabilities helping you most to cope with COVID-19, a couple of big ones: technology and resources, and flexibility and work-life balance. And I suppose that just highlights the fact that most of us are working from home. So 75% said technology and resources, 73% said flexibility and work-life balance, 71% said leadership. They are the 3 biggest by far. And in a sort of a distant 4th and 5th, we see organisational values and vision, and also supervisor and colleague support. So I might leave it with our presenters and Lou in a moment to see if you can integrate that into your presentation. But at this point, I'm going to stop sharing these results and hand over to Dr. Louise Parks, who will introduce our speakers. So over to you, Lou.
Thank you, Pete. And everybody, I get this wonderful privilege to introduce Charles Sturt because I have been working with their team over the last decade on their staff surveys. For those of you who don't know, Charles Sturt is a regional university in New South Wales that punches well above its weight. It's ranked #1 in Australia for graduate employment. And importantly, in the current context, it is the #1 provider of online education. As Pete mentioned, Charles Sturt was an early adopter of Voice's staff engagement survey. And you could say it's a bit of an institution at Charles Sturt. We had a staff consultative committee work on the early iterations of the survey, so there's a strong sense of ownership around it, and we get a really great participation rate every time. My HR partners have been fantastic. They work really hard to make sure it is a safe and trusted process, and we have good support from the Vice-Chancellor, Andy Van. He reports the results very transparently and genuinely engages with the results. While we've seen incremental changes over all of that time, of course, their survey results showed a significant shift last year and enough to win them the Change Challenge Award. So it's really terrific that they have agreed to come and share with us what they did and how they achieved that success. So to share their story today, we have Genevieve Doyle, who's the Manager for Strategic Change Management. Genevieve has spent most of her career in the finance sector, but took a tree change, and she's now based at Albury and has been at Charles Sturt for the last 18 months. We also have Fiona Murphy. Fiona is their Director of Culture, Capability and Wellbeing, based at Bathurst. She has a strong background in communication, HR and psychology across a range of sectors, including the energy industry and in food manufacturing. Fiona has a strong interest in creating both values-based but results-focused cultures. So I'm really excited that they're with us today and looking forward to hearing from both of them. Thank you, ladies, very much. And I'll hand over now to Fiona, who I think is going to kick it off for us today.
Thanks for that, Lou. I'm just getting the screen set up. Look, Genevieve and I are both really glad to be here. And, sorry, technology. Look, both very glad to be here, and I'd like to, start today by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land on which we're all meeting today. Across our Charles Sturt campuses, this includes the Wiradjuri, the Ngunnawal, the Biripi and Gundungurra peoples of Australia. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions and the culture and the hopes of Aboriginal Australia. Look, our aim today is to share our journey with you over the past few years. There's been some challenges along the way, and we can share a bit about how we've responded to those, and hopefully provide some insight into how our plans, may change as we're moving forward. Our university's strategy was set from 2017 through to 2022, and it was a fairly ambitious and transformative agenda for change for our students, our communities, and our internal capability. We wanted to reverse a trend that we were seeing of declining student load by restoring our brand equity and ensuring that Charles Sturt, remained seen as a university of first choice, and doing that through our brand helps to articulate our voice and our identity and our reputation in terms of what we stand for to our students and to our communities. So we committed to building a strong university that had the organisational culture, the workplace capability and the agility to actually adapt and thrive in that changing environment. And to do that, we knew we needed a strong change framework that would give us a structured process and a set of tools to be able to lead the people side of change and achieve those priorities under the university strategy. As we were starting to tackle those priorities, we knew there were some things we could do better, and the Your Voice survey helped us identify some of those, and they included things like better cross-unit cooperation, equipping our leaders to lead their people through change, and respect and recognition. So we took those elements, and it helped us sort of place our people, I think, at the centre of our strategy, and focus our energy on how we could set them up to succeed moving forward.
Thanks, Fiona. Good morning, everyone. So to dive a bit deeper into that response that Fiona's touched on, we identified those 4 focus areas, and we, as Fiona said, we based that on strategic planning as well as the voice survey results. And for each of these streams of work, the actions required were identified through extensive consultation with our staff, our students, and our communities. And we then worked on applying our change framework to better manage the people side of change in significant initiatives. So the 4 focus areas were around embedding our values and capability framework, refreshing and transforming our brand, building change capability, and refreshing and embedding our reward and recognition program.
To understand the approach that we took, though, we need to start with our reason for being. And for us at Charles Sturt, it's our ethos, Yindi Mara Wanangana. This is a phrase from the Wiradjuri people, and it talks very strongly to the sense of creating a world worth living in. And it's an ethos that resonates really deeply with our staff and our students, and reflects our commitment together to creating a world worth living in. We began refreshing our culture journey in 2016 by defining our values. We wanted a clear set that really sort of spoke to how we wanted to be known. And our values of being insightful, inclusive, impactful, and inspiring have been embraced by staff, with our most recent Your Voice survey showing that 86% of our people believe in them. So they're not only aware of them, they really do believe in them. And I think a big reason for that is that the values were created and they were owned by our staff. And that in itself was an interesting and sometimes, I think, challenging process. The idea of being inspiring, for example, you know, when I think of Australian culture, and particularly culture across rural and remote communities, it's quite modest at times, and often there's not a sense of actually wanting to blow your own trumpet. But I think our values gave us something to, one, be proud of what we do, but also to aspire to how we can actually help inspire other people and live each of those values in turn. The one thing we did know as well, though, in terms of challenges, was that whilst people they believed in the values and they resonated with them, they weren't always sure how to put them into practice on a daily basis. So the work we've been doing over the last couple of years has been very much about defining what those values mean in action, and what they look like in terms of daily behaviours, to help teams actually, you know, reflect and make those decisions themselves about how they want to be known and what good look like in their part of the organisation. And so we have a clear strategy. We know what our purpose or direction is, and our ethos and our values define how we're going to actually get there. When we think of culture, though, we started with the very simple idea that the culture we have is always going to be an outcome of how well we can embed those values, how well we challenge norms that aren't serving us well. Because, you know, across every culture and every organisation, it's very easy to fall into habits or to be blind to some of the things that aren't serving us well. And to then actually build capability in areas that we know that we could do better at. So our values and our strategy form the basis for our capability framework, which is essentially our blueprint and our architecture around how we want to build our culture, capability. And a big part of that is that piece around being able to adapt to change. And position us to be able to deliver on our brand promise.
Our brand framework has been a major transformation project for us. And the aim was around to assist with reversing a trend of declining student load, restoring brand equity, and really elevating Charles Sturt as a university of first choice. As Fiona mentioned, our brand is drawn from our ethos and values, and it helps us communicate and share our personality, what we stand for, and who we are with our students, our staff, our stakeholders, and our communities. Some of the brand attributes are well entrenched, like valuing personal relationships and building those really strong connections. We have a deep enthusiasm for what we do and where we live, and that's reflected in our brand. Other attributes are more aspirational, and I think Fiona touched on this nicely earlier around you know, sometimes regional areas are reticent to talk about themselves. It doesn't seem right, but we have a great story to tell, and we need to be really good at telling that story. Building confidence and driving progress not only helps our students, staff, and university, it's a lifeblood that helps our rural and regional communities thrive. So by pairing that motivation and commitment with the training, tools and resources to lead and manage change well, we are able to implement changes more successfully across the board. And we might jump into how we launched the brand. Thanks, Fiona. So we launched the brand on the 1st of May in 2019, and that was a really successful launch. It was on the back of much debate and feedback from our communities around what Charles Sturt means to them and who we are. We did have a bit of a bumpy road there where originally we had thought about changing our name, and we just got such a huge response. I think we had about 6,000 active people on our social media engaged in this conversation, and we ended up doing a poll and decided not to change our name as a result of that. And we're really able to, what started out as real resistance in this space, we were really able to harness that engagement and bring them on the journey of the brand transformation, which was, you know, turned out to be a real win for us. The level and commitment and affection, I'd say, for Charles Sturt around being there for the public good is an absolute reflection of our values and inspired many as we launched our brand. Now, obviously, this is a long-term investment, but we've got some early indicators that Louise touched on earlier around. We have had a 10% increase in school leavers choosing Charles Sturt as the university of first choice. We've returned to being the #1 provider of online education in Australia. We've maintained our standing as #1 for graduate employment outcomes. And we've really built staff engagement and identity through living our brand, workshops and champions. And that is around us getting better at telling our stories internally as well, and really identifying, okay, we do demonstrate our brand, so let's identify how we do that well and share those stories internally. And that might be a good spot to stop and just see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Genevieve and Fiona. Yes, we have a couple of questions. So first, just a clarifying question. Someone from probably the non-uni sector has asked, what do you mean by student load?
It means how many students we have coming through the door. Yeah,
And
a bit of jargon in there. Apologies for that, but
and
yeah.
Is that in person or online or both?
Both. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like how many customers you have, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. And from Erit, hello Erit. Erit asks, it's wonderful to hear how harmonised the university is with its local environment. To what extent were external data guiding the direction of change or the changes?
I think we can both talk to that, Jen. I think certainly from an internal perspective, to be hearing from our staff and their feedback, and Louise, you alluded before to the fact that the voice survey is something that's taken very seriously internally. And for me, being relatively new to the organisation here the last few years, it blew me away when I first started, just quite how serious that commitment was. So it gives us a rich source of information, and then we can track improvements over time. But also from an external point of view, and Jen, I'm sure you can talk more to this, there's been such an investment in understanding our market and our communities as well.
Yeah, we worked with an agency and did a lot of research. So we talked to prospective students, we talked to existing students, we talked to industry, and we really, part of the way we deliver our courses is that we do engage strongly with community and industry, because and it speaks to us being the number one in terms of graduate outcomes. We really do all of that work around making sure that we give our students the skills and capability that will get them jobs in our regions when they finish up with us, or within their own regions. In fact, that work translates. And in terms of the brand, I think certainly that engagement we got, that organic engagement through social media was really informative for us as well. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah, terrific. And in terms of that brand, we've got a few questions in terms of how you engage, particularly with staff around the brand, and from clearly some people familiar with academics, how did they react to even the term brand,
Sure.
and that kind of marketing spin, as they would call it? Yeah.
Sure. Look, it's a journey and we're still on it, I will say. So I think we have done a lot of work. We really see our staff as our primary advocates for the brand, and in fact are how we demonstrate it. You know, it's through student interactions with us that we can really demonstrate those brand attributes. With the academic audience, much like any change, we really we engage widely and consulted. We identified what we call our early adopters and influencers, and I think we really, so I'll talk a bit more about ADCAR coming up, but we really took people through the journey, so really explained why we needed to do this. You know, the environment's much more competitive than what it has been, and so getting students through the door, we've got to shift the way we do that and be able to tell that story really well, and that kind of why messaging really does resonate well with our academics. They are at the coalface and they know how many students are in their courses. So I guess just positioning it with them helped us get that engagement. Now, we still have many academics who might say spending money in brand is a waste of money, but I think taking us through the journey and seeing that even the early results we're getting from our brand transformation helps us really shift that thinking.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Genevieve. Now, I know there's a few questions here that are preempting what's coming up, so I'll just flag them now, but I think we'll move on to your presentation because I'm pretty sure you'll answer them, and they're really about whether you came up with your own frameworks for change management or what other frameworks you did use, and you've already mentioned ADCAR, and perhaps what strategies you used to deal with resistance to change. So
Sure.
I'll just leave them hanging out there, and if we can move on with your presentation, we'll come back to them, I'm sure.
For sure. So here's that was a nice segue into this slide, which is around our change capability and our change framework. We have come up with our own change framework that we think speaks directly to Charles Sturt, what we're trying to achieve, and the outcomes we're looking for. It is based on ProSci, which is proven, and part of the reason we've gone with ProSci is around our academic audience. So we know our cohort really responds well to proven methodology, and ProSci does such a great job of research around change and what works and what doesn't. So our goal was to build change leadership for a strong university that has the culture capability to adapt and thrive in our environment. And we established a change function within the Division of People and Culture in 2018. We had terrific sponsorship from our Executive Director, and our remit was to build change capability across the organisation through a Change Centre of Excellence, and provide change management support and services for strategic projects under the university strategy, so that real practical application of change. We use our change framework to assess, prepare, manage and reinforce change through specific tactics that we apply in each phase, and we focus on both organisational and individual change through using ADKAR. And for those not familiar with the ADKAR model, it's really a model for transitioning through change, where you build awareness around what's happening and why. So that's the acronym. It's awareness, desire. So you talk about the WIFMs and what's the benefits of that change. So what's in it for me? You provide the knowledge and ability for people to actually take on that change. And then you work on reinforcement strategies that really help that change to stick. And you want to get the adoption, the utilisation and proficiency in the changes that you're driving. Sponsors, so in our change framework, you can see that in the roles section that sponsors are there. They play such a critical role in the successful delivery of change. Staff look to our senior leaders for messages, which are both spoken and unspoken, about the importance of a change initiative and the university's commitment to that change. And we did have such a broad and an ambitious university strategy that we've done a lot of work around sponsorship within the university. We've also used a ProSci model, which is called the PCT triangle, which really brings together change management, project management and sponsorship. And you really need those three key elements to successfully deliver change. And leaders may make decisions related to strategy, resources and schedule. However, they also need to support changes with specific actions. And we know that change is delivered well through our people. And so that leadership role with staff is absolutely key. Might jump to the next slide. So this is around building change capability, and I will take this opportunity to call out my colleague Annette Figgis, who has she's the leader of the Change Centre of Excellence and has really played a key role in building change capability across Charles Sturt. We've done a number of things. We've had the whole of the change team accredited with ProSci accreditation. We've done a range of training and really a blended approach to training. We've trained up our leaders around effective leadership conversations. We've done so much work around sponsorship, really starting with our Vice-Chancellor and his leadership team, helping them understand the role of what a good sponsor looks like, and role modelling that and helping cascade that through their own leadership networks. We have rolled out what we call Change Leaders Workshop to over 300 leaders within the university, and that has involved not only introducing the ADKAR model and our change framework, but part of that workshop is around bringing along changes that leaders are rolling out within their own areas and working with them on how to apply good change thinking to their own delivery of change. We do bespoke workshops for teams based on what they might need, might be ADKAR, might be something about a project that they're doing, and we've worked really closely within the project delivery space to ensure that alignment between change and and project management activity is working and is effective. We have also developed change networks across the organisation. We had them for brand, we've got them for other major changes within the university. We've already spoken about that partnership with leaders, but we've also had other great partnerships around key change agents is what I'd call them. So groups like the business partners, the people and culture business partners, the key admin people within the organisation. Strangely, they have a key role not strangely, in fact, it's importantly, they have a key role in really driving change through the university. And we've applied ADCAR and PCT assessments and really embedded ourselves in that project delivery. I think I already touched on that one.
Okay, the fourth element that we identified up front was around reward and recognition. And if I can just quote some Gartner research, it was the idea that one of the big drivers of discretionary effort is that link between the work we do and our organisational strategy. And it can improve that employee effort by as much as 33%. So for us, when we think about reward and recognition, it's a simple, quick lever for us to put, I guess, our ideal around our culture into practice and action and make it something that's lived every day. And the way we went about doing that was by researching and introducing a reward and recognition program that was closely aligned with our strategy and values. It's known as RED, which stands for Recognising Excellence Daily. And the way we've been embedding the program is through a number of ways, but it's very much around our values, achievement orientation, and also recognising excellence. And the way we do that could be just simple e-cards, electronic cards that people can send to each other, so that peer-to-peer recognition. Creating opportunities for leaders to be able to give regular formal and informal recognition. We have service milestones, and we have people within our organisation that have contributed and been part of the organisation for such a long time, and it really is part of who they are, and by extension of that, who we are. So we make an effort to recognise that, and also university-wide recognition through our excellence awards. And this last year, we also reset those so that they were aligned with our Foundation Day celebrations. So again, it was bringing back to a core of who we are as an organisation and what we stand for. The name for our program, RED, actually came about from a competition with staff. And it reflected the feedback that lots of people gave us, that recognition isn't a one-off. It's something that needs to be a daily habit. So hence that idea of recognising excellence daily. And we have a portal, our RED portal, that provides a way for people to connect, send e-cards to each other. And RED is really becoming part of our everyday language. People send RED cards, they check out stories on RED. We have people that send in examples of what they see as just great examples of our work and our strategies in practice. So we get to celebrate those stories. And people can actually, the how-to side of things. If they want to actually submit a nomination, they can do it on this site. I also just want to give a shout out to Reward Gateway, who's the provider of the portal we use for RED, for making their Wellbeing Centre available free of charge to all of their clients during this COVID-19 period. Because for us, it was such a fantastic way to be able to offer some high quality resources, ranging from, exercise workouts to, healthy food to meditations that our staff could take advantage of. In terms of outcomes, we know that Charles Sturt has high awareness of our vision, our values and our strategy, and it is reflected in these results. So that people understanding how their job actually contributes to serving and supporting our students, and the overall success of Charles Sturt was 92%. And that rose 3% just over that last period between our surveys. Employee engagement, which is measured through our passion score in the Voice survey, improved by 4%, which I understand, talking with Peter and Louise, that's quite a significant shift for an organisation over a 2-year period. And awareness of our strategy sits at 77%, which also improved by 3%, but it's also 19% above the sector norm. And so for me, there's a piece there around organisational communication and helping, embed that across the organisation is one of those factors that's been really important for us about helping people make that real and to understand the role that they play in it. One of our biggest improvements was in that recognition space. And again, if we were to say that an increase of 4 or 5% is significant, to have actually improved up to 13% in 1 year is a tremendous shift. And I think it's very telling to the enthusiasm and the engagement with our staff. And that's acknowledging too that we still have a way to go. Yeah, our recognition score, they're sitting at 60 compared to some of those other factors, but we're headed in the right direction, and the engagement is there and the enthusiasm's there, which is great to see. The final point there is around what Genevieve was speaking to, all of the work that's being done around building change capability within the organisation. And we know from those that have been participating in those programs that, more than 95% of them, agree or strongly agree that the programs are relevant and they believe they'll help leaders to perform their roles better. So that's a key indicator for us as well. We've been talking about a strategy and the work that we've been doing, but it's in the context of a world that's always changing. And I think we'd all sort of agree it's gone into overdrive the last few months. Some of the challenges for us, we've had ongoing responsibilities and requirements around a higher education provider registration, and meeting the compliance requirements around those has been an additional very solid piece of work that's been undertaken across the organisation. We spoke earlier to that sense of decline in student load, and that is about the needs of our market has been changing and that it's busier out there. There's more competition. And now, I think everyone is moving to being online, and I don't see that that's something that will actually dial back. So we know that that's the world that we live in, and we have to keep responding to it. In the last few months, and it's building on years of drought, to then have the bushfires and then have COVID, it has had an impact that we've had to think about from our resourcing perspective and how we actually manage our programs.
Mm. And I might just add, Fiona, a bit about resourcing. And I'm sure this will resonate with anyone, but resourcing has been an ongoing challenge with the demand for project and change support often outstripping supply. And there's been a shift for staff themselves who are adjusting to new ways of thinking and managing change. Achieving positive change has involved realising that we are committed for the long term, and the building change capability internally will help to offset that resourcing, those resourcing challenges into the future. And why there are challenges, our voice passion scores show that we do have a committed workforce with a strong desire to learn and improve, which is fantastic. Yeah, thanks, Fiona. Look, we wanted to share, I particularly love our new red cards. So I think they're just so lovely and really speak to our regional community. But I guess I also wanted to touch on the work that we do around creating a shared vision, but also driving that shared contribution, and that we all have a role to play. And certainly in our most recent town halls and the comms that we've been doing recently about our Sustainable Futures strategy has been around particularly looking after ourselves. This is, it's a tough time for us in the university, and it's a tough time for us in the world. So, so really driving and helping our staff to help each other through our frameworks and our RED framework in particular. Thanks, Fiona.
It's okay. So look, moving forward, our goal is probably simple, just to continue striving to improve. We know based on our voice results that there are key areas that we can keep improving in and shifting the dial on. And these three areas in particular around leadership, respect, equity and complaint management, and results focus and process improvement are key ones that our VCLT have committed to. And they still stand up now in the changing environment with COVID and the impact that it's having on the sector. And it's really about moving towards how we can build a sustainable future. So if I think of leadership, it's about continuing to communicate, consult and involve staff in the changes that are impacting them. And we're tailoring our leadership development programs and staff engagement that will follow on from there to be very specific to the situations that we're facing at the moment. In terms of respect, equity and complaints, that actually ties in quite strongly to what Genevieve was just talking about in terms of a sense of a stronger focus on wellbeing. And we're in the midst at the moment of developing a 3-year health, safety and wellbeing strategy to help transition through this period, but also lead us forward, as well as looking at better ways of doing things, including our complaints management processes. And results focus and process improvement, we recently established a program management office that will be driving the university strategy towards that idea of a sustainable future. And from a leadership capability perspective, it'll link straight back to our capability framework. So the work we've done still stands, thankfully. But it's that focus, really making sure we're picking up some elements that we haven't invested in as strongly at this point, like being more business savvy, taking action and being really focused on getting results.
Our strategy has always had 3 focus areas around our people, our students and our communities. And we've had to really, I guess, our strategy has evolved over time, but certainly over the last few months, we've really had to shift a focus. And again, I'm sure this resonates with everyone, that there are real challenges in terms of staff impacts and operational impacts as a result of the environment we're currently working within. However, that sustainable futures, we call it our Sustainable Futures strategy, really absolutely builds on all the work that we have done over the past few years. And I think that positions it really strongly. We've had to add in some elements to the strategy and change our priorities and focus somewhat. And that includes around delivering, immediate savings that we need to do to secure our financial sustainability and have the ability to build ourselves up again so that we can invest in ourselves again. Our focus does remain on aligning our highly skilled and capable workforce to the needs of our students and our communities. We're continuing to work on a model of development, delivery and student experience through what we call the Charles Sturt Advantage. And this is a model on how we will deliver and develop our offerings. And I think I touched on this a bit earlier, but we really work hard with industry and our external stakeholders to put our students in the best positions possible when they leave us. It also includes reviewing our course profile and really driving that student experience. So understanding our students and what their needs are, and ensuring that we deliver to our markets and are innovative and successful in how we do that and the outcomes of what we do. And I'm just getting the time point. Thanks, Lou. And that's a wrap. We can go to questions.
Turn myself off mute. Thank you so much, Genevieve and Fiona. We have been getting lots of positive feedback through the chat line and through the Q&A, and people saying they're loving the things that you've been doing, loving your inclusive approach, and congratulating you on the fantastic outcomes that you've achieved. So let's go to some of the questions. It's an absolutely comprehensive and huge change program that you've put in place, and the resources around managing change. In terms of, I guess, perhaps in particular dealing with resistance to change, do you think is there any one initiative within that program that you think has been particularly effective in that regard, or is it about having a systemic approach?
Both. I would say. So as part of our change framework, we have 5 plans that we work to in the phase where we're managing change, and resistance management planning is a part of that. So we have a structure around how we do that, and that's around understanding where resistance is coming from and applying appropriate change strategies to help manage that resistance. But we also, all that work we do through leaders, and in fact all the work we do through driving change and working on our culture, is by default managing resistance. Great communications, great leadership and role modelling, all of that contributes to shifting people's perception and helping them move through change.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Jen, if I would just add to that too, you know, that aspect of communication I think is so important. And one of the things that we'd mentioned earlier was that idea of cross-unit collaboration. And it's been really sort of just seeing different communication across the organisation the last couple of years where people are explicitly calling that out, you know, that it isn't just about what they're doing in their patch, it's how they're working with others across the organisation. And that in itself helps to, I think, nip resistance in the bud, because people have that opportunity to be involved and to have a say in terms of how we move forward.
Mm.
That's a really good segue to the next question, which is about communication. You guys are really experienced in remote communications, dealing with a very dispersed workforce across, you know, many different locations and distance. We're all just getting used to it in this current environment. So what additional challenges does that bring for communicating remotely? And what tips do you have for how, you know, that can be done effectively, both for your change communications and things like your recognition program and things like that?
Well, we were already pretty good. There's nothing like a pandemic to really tighten that up, I tell you. Certainly the technology is one way. We really lean on technology, and we're all very used to this kind of forum. I think too, and Fiona, I'll let you jump in as well, but we do, I think things like having champion networks around particular things. So when we launched the values, we had values ambassadors that were across all of our campuses. We did the same around brands. So really, I think really harnessing our early adopters and influencers to do that on the ground communication. I think we have a fantastic communications team as well, who do just terrific work. We lean on our staff intranet. We have daily communications that come out. Our Vice Chancellor, Andy Van, is a fantastic communicator. He does such a great job. We run what we call town halls, which used to be face-to-face, but we now do these amazing Zoom town halls, and we'll get 1,000 staff at a town hall, which is terrific. So I think the structures that we have in place around, and we've had to do that, right? Our footprint has really led us to that space, but we have some good structures in there. Have you got anything to add, Fiona?
Look, I fully agree with what you said, but I think it's that mix as well between having those eyes and ears on the ground and really appreciating when people do say, hey, have you thought about, or what have you, you know, to point out things that are happening or could be improved is always welcome. But to pair that with some quite structured communication strategies, and Jen, back to your point, our internal comms team do an amazing job, and they're always looking out for how they can connect the dots between the things that are happening. For me, and for my team, a good example of that is our Red Portal. You know, some organisations have a system like that as their intranet, We don't. We have a separate intranet, and so the portal, it could be very easy for it to sit off on the side. So we've had to be really conscious about making sure that our communication is linked. So every time Andy is sending out an update, he can put a link in there for people to go and congratulate each other and send an e-card, or, you know, just to tie those pieces together. Hopefully makes it feel far more seamless for, you know, anyone who's on the receiving end of the communication.
And I'll just add one more thing you made me think about. It was, and Red is a part of it, but that feedback process. So I think the brand was a really great training ground for us to get good at gathering feedback, and that informs our communication. And we have a process where we do a debrief after town halls, and we gather, okay, what could we do better? What are we hearing from staff? Are we getting the messaging right? So having that that feedback channel is really key to your communications being effective.
Fabulous. Thank you. We've got another question here from Melanie, who used to work at CSU in a previous life. She's now at UTAS. And she says that one of the things she loved was the strong connection to a local community, to local community and rural regional Australia at CSU. So was being a place-based university part of the change agenda, or was that already an existing strength?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It's almost in our DNA. I think a lot of people who are attracted to come and work to the university, it's because they also appreciate that link. But our students come from all over the world. It isn't just landlocked in a sense. So Genevieve, you made a point earlier about, you know, to be able to upskill people to influence their regions, wherever those regions might be, I think is also a key part of our philosophy.
I'm just checking our time. Do we have time, Pete, for one more question, or should we wrap up? One more question. So we've had a question about the staff engagement workshops that you referred to. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Sure. I think I was talking about those. We do them for a range of things, but I'll just land on the Living Our Brand workshops, and our brand has a whole framework around it. So it has attributes, it talks to our personality, our tone of voice. And so part of those staff engagement workshops are around some technical upskilling around, if you are a writer, how do you apply tone of voice, just getting consistency around those technical parts of the brand, and ensuring everybody understands the brand, and we unpack it in those workshops. So it's partly around that, but then it's around talking with staff around, okay, well, what do you guys do, and how do you do it, and really helping staff to have some aha moments about how they demonstrate the brand, or how they could demonstrate the brand. And we really we run those workshops that it's very much a facilitated conversation where the staff involved work with their intact groups, and they work with their own teams and leaders to have those conversations, and we celebrate what comes out of those workshops by sharing stories within the organisation of teams that are doing a great job demonstrating brand, or have terrific brand stories to tell.
Thank you. And I think I'm conscious that we've got some more questions, but we don't have any more time. I'll hand over to you, Pete.
All right, thank you, Lou, and especially big thanks to Fiona and Genevieve. I know it takes an enormous amount of time and energy to prepare and deliver this type of presentation, so really appreciate sharing your change journey, and what you've done is very impressive at Charles Sturt Uni, so I hope it continues in that vein. Apologies to everyone for the questions if we weren't able to address your question. If there's anything pressing, you can send through questions to us, and we'll endeavour to answer those after the event, and we can pass on information to Fiona and Genevieve as well. You can download today's slides using the link that is available there, and I mentioned before we have recorded the webinar, and in a few days after the webinar, once we edit it, we'll send around a link to that recording. recording. One final note is that when we wrap up this the webinar, you will be directed to a post-webinar feedback form. So please, if you can just give us 1 or 2 minutes filling in that form post the webinar, that's great for us understanding how well this works and how we can do a better job next time. So thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Genevieve. Thanks, Lou, for emceeing all the questions. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope it's worked well and I hope you found it valuable. All right, then. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.